To win, you need a great product, of course. However, I don't think it's enough anymore, at least not in the long run.
Welcome to How to Win with me, Pep Blau. A deep dive into studying winners in B2B SaaS to determine how much is strategy, how much is luck, and how do you win.
There have never been as many brands as there are today. Crazy amount of SaaS startups, millions, new ones launching every day, every month, every year. And furthermore, if you look into any category, the stability of market positions is simply astonishing. Whoever manages to get the biggest first in any category stays there for a long time. Heinz Ketchup became the category leader in the 70s, still the category king. If we look at the CRM category market share numbers, then we see that Salesforce has been the leader since the beginning. Even the top 5 other players in there really have not changed. David Aaker has studied it, and he has an interesting observation for when do market positions change dramatically. And he's concluded that it mostly happens when new categories of subcategories emerge.
I got the idea originally about 6-7 years ago when I did a lot of work in Japan, and I had access to Japan beer data. And I looked at 40 years of beer data and noticed that only 4 times did the market share trajectory change. Despite the fact there was enormous advertising and new product vitality every single year. I mean, these guys would put out 4 new products a year. 4 times. 40 years. There was any meaningful change. I mean, it's all about growth, right? Everybody, through 25 years from 1970 on, everybody was trying to grow. That was the objective of their business. Didn't happen. Nothing. And I went in the car industry. I went in the water industry. I went in the banking industry. It's the same story. Every time you see a computer industry, anytime you see a spurt of growth and you look at it carefully, it's not because somebody did better marketing or advertising or pricing. It was because there was a new subcategory formed.
So you cannot beat category kings. I'm not talking about exceptions where there's some sort of a technological disruption where Apple displaced Nokia or Kodak disappeared when digital cameras overtook film cameras. That happens rarely. And small companies really are at a massive disadvantage here. Listen to this bit by the marketing legend, Mark Ritson.
You're very fucked if you're a small brand because capitalism isn't fair. And American marketers have many great strengths, but one of their weaknesses is they have this fetish for David versus Goliath, and that small, agile, entrepreneurial brands will win. And it's just patently not true. It's never been true. It does occasionally happen, but so rarely we shouldn't really talk about it. The story of marketing is big brands getting there first when categories are created and then dominating from that point onwards, partly because they've got more money, but also because their dollars go further because they're already a big brand. And it's not fair.
Byron Sharp, who wrote the massively prominent book, How Brands Grow, he also noticed this law of double jeopardy. What it says is that the larger the market share of a brand, the more users and loyalty they have. And smaller brands have fewer users, fewer customers, who are also less loyal.
What's the difference between a big brand and a small brand? And prior to that, the theory was, because there are really 2 things that make up your sales in any time period. It's how many customers you have and then how much business they give you. It was always thought, well, you could either have a lot of customers who gave you a little bit of business each, or you could have a few customers who gave you a lot of business each. You any other combination of these. And the double jeopardy law is like really mind-blowing because it says, no, you always get the same, right? You always get the same pattern, and that is the bigger brands will have a lot more customers. And they will also buy a little bit more often. But if 2 brands, what that means is if 2 brands are the same size, they must have about the same number of customers. And those customers must have about the same amount of loyalty, right? The two brands would be. And so that is a big surprise because you can't grow without increasing penetration. You cannot grow without increasing the size of your customer base. Although I've heard CEOs say this, like in fact, for particularly Australian banks, there was a CEO of a very large Australian bank who said, "We don't need any more customers. We can grow the business by getting more." And I know you can't. And I'm sorry, if you stop trying to acquire customers, you're going to start shrinking because, every day you're going to lose customers.
If you just look around on social media like LinkedIn, Twitter, every day there's somebody asking for tool recommendations. 95% plus of the replies to any such thread is they're naming category leaders. If they ask, what's your favorite CRM? You'll hear, HubSpot, Salesforce. It's rare when somebody or more than one person recommends a smaller startup. As a marketer, your number one job is to get inside that very limited consideration set of a target buyer. People recommend tools they have never used, but have heard of. Winter, my company, it's small enough where I know basically every single company that's our customer still. And I see sometimes people on LinkedIn or Twitter recommending Winter. Oh, yes, use Winter for that. And of course, I'm very grateful for all that word of mouth. However, I know they've not used it. They have just heard of it, right? You want to get inside that consideration set. So when somebody, A, is in a purchasing situation, they're actually looking for a tool to buy, or somebody asks them for a recommendation, you want to be in those first 5 tools they think of. I call that consideration set. Essentially, it's about mental availability. How do you get inside the consideration set and win? The best way to get in there is innovation. This is where you are objectively better than any alternative, massively better. In real life, it is very difficult to build an objectively better product. So I like to ask people, name an objectively better product. Beyond Google search, it's very hard to come up with an example. When Tinder came about, the dating market was already saturated. Lots of players, lots of money, Match.com, all that stuff. But Tinder came with the innovation of the swiping user experience that people loved, and it took off. Later, of course, everybody copied it. Or Tesla, latecomer to the car maker industry, created a new subcategory of electric cars that created an opening for them. Through innovation, they managed to build their market share. There's an interesting idea about what innovation actually does. Byron Sharp, for instance, says that innovation is all about mental availability. He says that innovation, when it works, does so by expanding mental and physical availability and rewards us by letting us earn returns even after competitors have nullified our product or price advantage. Meaning that over time, whatever your innovation is, the competitors will copy you and catch up. But the benefits of innovation, you might reap those rewards for years to come just because you have better mental availability. Think about large language models today. Jasper was the first LLM tool to come out, and they reached the unicorn status in record speed. It's been insane how fast an innovative tool has been copied. For Jasper, there are now many tens of clones that are like this AI content writing tools. So many, but Jasper is still number one because they were the first, and they're still reaping the rewards, even though their technology is no better than anyone else's technology. So innovation is a transient advantage, right? It's an advantage, and you can milk it, but the effects, the benefits of that innovation over time, they just go away. You need to be a constant innovator to use this as your advantage. Very few companies can sustainably compete on innovation. The second way to get inside the consideration set is money. Marketing more than other companies. A concept called excess share of voice. Here's Mark Ritson again to explain.
If a brand underspent, so it had a much higher share of market and a lower share of voice, eventually and perhaps inevitably its market share would also fall to the levels of its share of voice. But in contrast, if a brand overspent and had a higher share of voice versus share of market, in many cases, indeed in most cases, its market share would eventually increase. That difference, that positive difference between share of voice and share of market is called excess share of voice. If I have a 20% share of voice, but only a 10% share of market, I have an excess share of voice of plus 10. We often abbreviate it to ESOV, and it's one of the most important and least understood concepts in the world of marketing effectiveness. And there was something else that Jones observed from his data. If you looked at small brands, let's say one in this case with a 5 or 6% market share, that brand had to overspend. It had to have a positive ESOV in order to maintain that level of market share, perhaps at 8 or 9% share of voice. In contrast, the big brands, let's say with 20 or 22% market share, could get away with a share of voice that was perhaps 15 or 16% and still maintain their position.
As an example, let's take Monday.com. Monday.com is a prime example of a company that bought their way into our consideration set. Before Monday came, this task management category, your Asanas and all those kind of tools, they were already massive, big. If we study their financial reports, it's very illuminating. Starting with quarter 2, 2019, revenue was 17 million. What they spent on sales and marketing was 26 million. Next quarter, revenue 21 million, sales and marketing 33 million. They're always spending more money on sales and marketing than their actual revenue, taking massive losses. And so we fast forward in quarter 1, 2021, revenue 58 million, sales and marketing expense 63 million. So they're keeping it going year after year, outspending the competition. At some point, it looked like they bought up the whole YouTube inventory. You couldn't go to YouTube without seeing a Monday.com ad.
We're that efficient with Monday.com.
Now it sits firmly at the top of the task management category leaders. There's also solid data out there that 95% of category buyers are out of market at any given time. So you also need to market and advertise to these 95% of people. And advertising is one of the ways you do this. So you build mental availability. So when they do have the budget and the need and all those things later, then they'll think of you as one of the options to look into. So you need to think of advertising as insurance. Third way to get inside the consideration set is to win beyond the product through narrative, positioning, messaging, and content. I personally think that it consists of 3 phases. Number 1 is stand out. So what you do with your company has to be differentiated, because there's this thing called the law of shitty click-throughs, which essentially explains that every single marketing tactic over time becomes ineffective. Here's Andrew Chen, the author of this term, to explain.
The law of shitty click-throughs is that every marketing channel degrades over time. And it's degrading over time primarily because of use and followed by overuse within that. And so every marketer then needs to compete with each other to find new channels that they can use before each other. Now, the interesting thing with the marketers finding new channels is they're constantly trying things and copying each other. And so if you have every channel in the world constantly degrading, then you have to know, first off, where you are in the channel's kind of history as to whether or not it's going to work. And by the way, this is one of the things that sucks, is that by the time that you read about a marketing channel or a marketing tactic or whatever on Twitter, it's probably already been fully utilized. By the time that there are companies that are writing case studies enabling marketers to use the channel, right, that's when you know it's fully utilized, because there's even tools.
So what is the antidote to the law of shitty click-throughs? It's a concept called fast marketing, which means that you're always looking for that new channel that is underexploited. You're constantly refreshing your marketing playbooks. You need new formats. You need pattern interrupt. Chris Walker called it revenue R&D. You're doing R&D on marketing. You're doing R&D on your product. You're constantly experimenting and testing. In fact, marketing teams should be split into two different units. There's the Explore unit, which deals with uncertainty. It's searching for breakthroughs. It's taking risk. It finds a lot of things that don't work, and then there's a few things that work that bring outsized returns. It's all about iterative experimentation, a lot of build, measure, learn type of things. Then there's the other marketing team, which is the exploit team, which means we know what works, so let's do more of it, let's do better of it. So here the uncertainty is low, and it's more about how can we improve our efficiency? Can we do it faster and cheaper? Noah Kagan, who's the founder of AppSumo, they bootstrapped to $80 million. And he said it's largely because they found two things that work and they just went all in on those two things, which in their case were ads and affiliate marketing. The Explore Exploit, how do you balance them? Typically, you want to do 80-20, meaning that 80% exploit, 20% explore. The Explorer is always finding something that works, and then when it finds something that works, you pass it on to the exploit team who will exploit it to death. Another thing about standing out is that you don't want to play the same game as the category leader. You don't want to overlap with some of the big companies. Let's imagine the smartphone market. There are all these people who buy smartphones. And then there's Apple marketing their iPhone to a portion of the market. Then there's Samsung marketing their phones to another portion of the market. And there's some overlap between these two target markets. But there's also the big area of where they don't overlap at all. And once upon a time, there was also LG was making smartphones and really competing directly with Samsung. And they got eviscerated. LG got beaten so bad that they mostly became a subcontractor for other companies. Here's an explanation by Andrew Edwards on how LG got beat by Samsung.
LG was not short of creativity and innovation, but it was short of execution and marketing. LG's phones were often plagued by quality issues, software bugs, delayed updates, poor battery life, and mediocre cameras. LG phones were also often overpriced, under-advertised, and poorly distributed. They were overshadowed by Samsung's phones, which had better displays, cameras, performance, and features. The company struggled to maintain a clear and consistent brand image when it came to its smartphone lineup. Unlike its competitors like Samsung and Apple, LG failed to create a distinct identity and reputation for its smartphones, leaving consumers confused and unsure about what the LG brand represented in the smartphone market. In the end, despite its many successes and innovations, LG's smartphone business simply couldn't compete with the likes of Samsung, Apple, and other smartphone manufacturers.
If you think about the software market, there's HubSpot, CRM, and other stuff. And there's Salesforce. There is an overlap in terms of what kind of companies they're going after, but HubSpot is much more SMB than Salesforce. Salesforce is much more enterprisey, but there is some overlap there. Now, if I were to start a new CRM startup today, I would never go after the exact same companies as HubSpot is going or Salesforce. One way to think about this consideration set, why would somebody use me over HubSpot if I'm a CRM? You invent a new job to be done. When is this tool the best use case? For instance, in the CRM market, there's Copper CRM, a reasonably successful company. The way they position themselves is that we're known for our Google Workspace integration, meaning that if you use Google Workspace in your everyday thing, that's your tech stack, you probably want to consider using Copper. So it's a much more specific positioning versus, hey, we're a CRM for small businesses. So it's a kind of a new job to be done. What I've done with Winter is that I have invented a new job to be done, which is you need to test your messaging or you need to do ICP research. It's not that those things didn't exist before me, but they were just pain in the ass to do. Now it's like, hey, if you want to do either message testing or ICP research with B2B people, that's Winter. Who else is in that consideration set? Who am I up against? And really, that consideration set is largely empty. Your positioning needs to be crisp. It needs to answer, what is the category? Winter is a target market insights platform for B2B SaaS marketers. Who is it for? For relevancy, ICP. And the use cases, what problem do I solve for you? And if you are in a competitive space, also your onlyness. Why are we providing the most value over all these other alternatives? If you look at some successful companies around, you will notice that crisp positioning is usually successful companies. So take Klaviyo, started when MailChimp and all these other email marketing companies were already big and successful, and they decided to tackle the email marketing for e-commerce as a subcategory. If you go to Klaviyo's website, you will see they say it's e-commerce marketing automation platform. What is it? They mention who they're for and what are the use cases, why you want to use it. On the other hand, what's going to hurt your chances is fuzzy positioning. Fuzzy positioning is when it's not clear what it is, and you're also not making clear what does it replace. There's this company called Range, and the way they describe themselves, they say that because team communication shouldn't be all over the place. Okay, I get an understanding it's a team communication tool, which is, of course, extremely vague. And then they say share async updates, create agendas, take meeting notes, track team goals, plan your work. Is it a Slack or a Google Docs alternative? Does it replace Notion, ClickUp, Asana? It's not clear. This is fuzzy positioning. Another way to do a fuzzy positioning is it's a type of website where you go and the headline is always changing. If the headline does so much and you have so many different use cases and you have so many different target customers that you can't decide what you are. So you want to be all things and you use the rotating headline to communicate this, which is just a horribly bad idea. And it results in fuzzy positioning. The consequence of fuzzy positioning is that the target customer who somehow lands on your website, they're like, it's too hard to figure out, and they just leave. It is your job to own your messaging and to communicate who you're for and what is it for and all that stuff. Don't make it your customer's problem to figure out. The second thing in winning beyond product is staying top of mind. Somehow you stand out. They find out that you exist, which is half the battle. Now you need to stay top of mind. Mental availability here is the name of the game. Mental availability is being thought of by category buyers in buying situations. This is why these big advertisers like Procter & Gamble or Geico or whoever, there's non-stop advertising to you. So when you're ready to buy one day, you think of them. In B2B, what do you do so that the customer would think about you as often as possible? So where are the customers? Where do they hang out? Well, how can we show up in those places where the customer's hanging out? If they're spending their day doom scrolling on LinkedIn, that's where you want to show up. You want to go all in with content marketing on LinkedIn and, of course, do it well. Remember Profitwell before it got acquired by Paddle? They had all these different media shows, content marketing plays for various segments of their market, different shows in a podcast format, video format, of course, content repurposing all the time. If you were interested in a particular topic, they wanted to be your favorite destination for content on that topic. So how do I do that at Winter? We do a number of things. For our message testing product, I invented a show called Do You Even Resonate? You might have seen me on LinkedIn, where I run a message test using Winter on a website, and then I'll just narrate the results in a somewhat entertaining way. As a small business like Winter, what can you win on? The easiest thing in the world to do would be to spend money to get attention, but we cannot compete with money with the big guys. So you have to play a game where you might have a chance of winning. I believe that small companies can also win on content. Virtual events basically cost nothing to put on. Let's do a virtual event. So for years, we've been now doing Winter Games virtual event. While everybody else does their virtual conference once a year, we've been doing it monthly and sometimes quarterly. Sometimes we mix it up with other formats. We do winter workshops, essentially webinars, but it's the same idea that we have something to talk about with the market, something to email our newsletter list about. And of course, talking about newsletters, it's a must-have to just send a weekly newsletter. You can send more often if you have interesting things to say, but that is permission marketing, essentially the best way to just stay top of mind. And of course, the prerequisite here is that you have something interesting to say. They actually do want to hear from you. And then they won't read every email, obviously. Close enough. Then you can do a podcast. Just another way to stay top of mind. These are all just different hooks in the sea. The way I think about content is that content is channel agnostic. You create a piece of content. And now it can be a podcast episode, it can be a LinkedIn post, it can be a newsletter, it can be all of those things. What we also know from marketing research is that the best way to advertise is advertise broad to all category buyers. And you want to advertise consistently, not in terms of spikes, but consistent. So you take your annual budget, you divide it by 12 months, and you spend that money each month. Each month, you're doing consistent advertising. We've been doing this video ads that I think is pretty funny.
I knew Jeff and Lisa were perfect for each other. The night of our first threesome.
Winter gives you feedback on your messaging from the people you're marketing to. This way, you can make sure your message resonates before it gets out there.
Producing video ads with like real actors and so on, it can be very expensive. The way we minimize the cost, we got the cost only to around $1,000 to $2,000 per 30-second ad, is to just not use a big ass agency to produce our ads, because that's expensive. So you use like freelancers. If you look for those people, you can dramatically cut your costs. Another thing we did to look bigger and to stay top of mind is throw conferences. So with Winter, we're throwing a conference called Spring, and it's a totally unique format because events are very competitive. And we've made it not about PowerPoints, but it's about connection, community, all that stuff. And the key reason we created this event was to have something to talk about with the target market. Obviously, also to build relationships, or ICPs. So every attendee is an ICP, every speaker is an ICP. In fact, we do the same with our virtual events, where every presenter is an ICP, and build an actual relationship, get on your radar, you follow my content, all that stuff. So over time, it all starts to make sense. And the final piece of this winning beyond the product is you need to out-convert the competition. If you can acquire customers cheaper than others, that's how you dominate, right? So conversion, them signing up for stuff, that is the effect. But what is the cause? Conversion optimization, of course, is a big, long science. The key thing to think about it is that it's mainly about motivation. Can we get them to want to do it? If they want to sign up, they will sign up. And messaging is the major part of that cause. So cause and effect is messaging equals they sign up for your stuff. And messaging is not just your homepage stuff, it's also the content that you put up on a regular basis, your newsletter, your LinkedIn, and so on and so forth, because it all needs to be the same key ideas you want to communicate to the market. Motivation is many times more important than friction. If the motivation is high enough, the people are ready to put up with all kinds of bullshit. So if I was selling a Tesla Model S cars for $10,000 and I only had to fill out a 100-field form, millions of people would do it because it's such a good deal, such a good value proposition, a value for money. The principle applies. If the motivation is high enough, the friction is far less important. Not to say that you should ignore friction. Don't make anything harder than it needs to be. Focus on the motivation. Unbounce, the landing page company, their data science team had this interesting thing where they analyzed all of the landing pages built using the Unbounce platform, and they were looking into what factors predicted conversion, how much did this or that factor in to the final conversion. And they discovered that copy was the most influential part on any landing page, and it was twice as influential as design in why visitors converted. So the problem with all of this is that the symptoms of ineffective messaging aren't easy to spot. It's cause and effect. If you want your messaging to convert better, you need to fix 4 things. 1, clarity. Make it as easy to understand as possible. 2, relevance. Make it clear who this is for. Like, who's the ICP and what problem you solve for them. 3, most important part, is the value. You make them want the value you're offering. Make them drool. Tease the promised land. Knowing which messages your buyers need to hear will radically improve your entire marketing, which is why, of course, ICP research and message testing are so important. So you stand out, you stay top of mind, and you out-convert the competition. David Cancel, the founder of Drift, said in 2017, product-based differentiation is going away. Act accordingly. And those words are truer today than they were back then.
Thanks for tuning in to How to Win, where in each episode I unpack one aspect of winning in B2B SaaS. All your feedback is much appreciated. For more insights and opinions, follow me on LinkedIn or Twitter.